I wonder if this could be where God was speaking.
Yeah.
And often it's, I wonder if it could be this voice, because this doesn't look like God to me, you know, looking at the person across from me.
Yeah.
So where else? Where else did you encounter God in this movie?
What did I miss?
We haven't talked very long at all, Mary. The one thing we did talk about is we talked about, because there's so few of us, maybe canceling this session and only having the other session. Are you able to come to Tuesday morning or not?
No, I'm working.
Okay.
Oh, it's Wednesday morning, right?
Wednesday morning.
Yeah,
Sorry,
but I'm working.
okay. So let me think whether we cancel it or not. Up to now, let's not. You know, because if it's the four of us, I think that's a pretty good discussion group.
How many people do you have on Wednesday?
About 10.
Oh, do you really?
Right around that. Wouldn't you say, Garnet? You watched the...
Yeah, if not more. And again, Mary, I'm not on that live, but I watch the replay each week. I watch it, and then I watch the movie, and then I'm for this discussion.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Oh, by the way, here are all the next movies for you.
Oh, okay, good.
What I've done is I put them on a thing for you. Let me share my screen, and I will. Oh,
I got the email.
Oh, you got the email? Did you guys get the email? Mary, did I send it to you?
I haven't checked it since this morning. Did you send it out after?
No, it would have been already there. So maybe I haven't gotten it to you, but I will get the list to you. Next week's movie is a movie called Beatrice at Dinner. It's from last year, the year before, I think. And Salma Hayek stars as this lady who, I think it says something along the lines of she was invited to dinner, but not really welcome.
What's the name of it? I've never heard of it.
Beatrice at Dinner. Here, let me get you a picture of it so you can see. Hold on, I just have to find it.
That's an excellent movie.
Yeah, definitely
Really
worth the time to watch. Here it is. Oh. Somewhere. Oh, here it is. So here's the movie, what it looks like.
Okay.
That's what you're looking for.
Okay.
And I have a copy here at church. I don't have it right now because somebody has borrowed it. But if you just call ahead, I will have that movie so that you can use it and then just bring it back the next day. Okay? Because this is not a movie that's as prominent, available as others, but if you need it, that's what it is. So anyway, this is what the rest of the thing looked like. Here's the list of movies. You haven't seen that, Mary?
Yes, I could see it. Yes.
No, but you haven't seen it before?
No, I didn't get an email.
All right, I will make sure that I get that to you.
Good, they look good. I've seen some and not others.
And the only ones of the whole list, November 25th, 2 of the names are familiar to me, but I've not seen any of these movies and hadn't heard of any of them except.
You've not seen any of the rest of them, Garnet?
No.
Oh. Yeah, well, they probably haven't. They probably haven't made the movie theater up there in what's that little town you're from?
Coolidge, but I don't live there.
I'm just kidding you. I know that. Hey, speaking of this last thing, these I put 3 movies down here. They're all wonderful movies, and I'd reached the end, and I couldn't decide which one of those to choose. And so, just kind of tell me which one you would like to. They're all on the same broad topic, but very different aspects of it. They're about racial relations, Black America, and so if Beale Street Could Talk is a marvelous book made into a movie. Green Book is incredible, and then 13th is a documentary that I have referred to more often than any movie over the last couple of months as we've been doing it. So anyway, think about those. So back to our movie for the day, Milagro Beanfield War. where else was God present? How did you see some change agent of God present in the midst of that movie?
Well, did you already talk about the deceased man that keeps visiting
The
The
angel.
the
concert.
angel?
Yeah.
Did you already talk about that?
No, we haven't. I think that's one of the most incredible figures in here, right?
Yes.
Who exactly is that? And definitely a change agent in the midst of it all, isn't it?
Yeah.
Although
And
it says oftentimes some of the limitations of what he will or won't do as well, which is kind of like God. God doesn't just say, because I want it, I make it happen. Or, but definitely changed everything. Like, for example, when he blew the papers into the air.
right. Yes, like that, right there. That right there.
Didn't make
Yes.
anybody read the paper, but made it available,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
right?
At somebody else's expense.
At somebody else's expense.
I got the
Yes.
impression,
Go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I got the impression that that angel was actually Joe's dad. Because at
Yes.
some point I remember, let's see, the angel talking with the old man, and the old man had said to Joe that he talks to his dad, to Joe's dad.
Oh, I do remember that. I didn't connect that to the angel, the
Yeah.
concertina player, but that
Yeah.
could be true. But the reality is very often angels are those past voices somehow, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I loved all the conversations the old man had with him. I thought those were just great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love the conversations between the old man and the college
Oh, yes.
and the
But
changes that conversation and that relationship made in that college student.
yeah, but wasn't that one of the most remarkable things where he comes in and he sees this strange old man, doesn't see who he's talking to, but he's obviously talking to somebody who's not there from his perspective. And instead of running away, which oftentimes we do in a situation like that, he goes over and says, "Can I come and sit down too?" And thus begins this relationship that absolutely changes Herbie, the college student, right? I mean, he's definitely out of his element, but he doesn't let that stop him. Up to at the end, where he's praying to the saints for Amarante, way outside of what he would have done at the beginning.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But he chooses to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I don't know if this was intentional or if this was just my interpretation that the last scene is the old man really, as they walk into the sunset, the old man has crossed over and has died.
I was thinking that too. Yeah, I thought that too.
There's a certain amount of where concertina player is the angel of death, right? But definitely very different from what we often, tie into the guy in the long robe with the sickle, right? Who just comes and reaps the people. It wasn't quite that, was it?
No, not at all. Not scary.
Yeah, but even at the beginning, there was a certain amount of where Amarante said, I think, said something like, "Are you coming here to take me?" And he said, "No, I'm here to help."
I don't remember him saying that, but that's, yeah. Besides, at the very end, if he was still at, in the hospital, he wouldn't have walked home and he wouldn't have been in his suit.
Yeah, probably not. But isn't that a beautiful way to think about death, though? That there we are, met by somebody who we've already met and who walks us and say, "Hey, I got a shortcut over here. Want to walk with me?" And I just think that that's a beautiful way to think of death, because especially in America, we do a whole lot of fearing that death moment, don't we? and hiding from it and doing whatever we can to avoid it.
Yeah.
And so to have it, to have that moment be a friend who we walk with is quite remarkable.
Yeah. That's a great idea. That's a great way to think of it.
I've never really had a feeling of being afraid of death. I think partly it was before we moved to Coolidge, lived in Michigan on a dairy farm, and animals were either dying or being killed because they're for, dinner. But I have to say the ordinary or goofy part of me for our 50th reunion, I had put out a thing, but we didn't do it because I didn't get a response, that everybody was to do a writing. They had to write their own obituary and present it. Would have a writing contest in honor of our English teacher, senior English teacher. And it had to be true, but it had to be funny.
Mm.
And you didn't have to commit to using it. And I said, in the winter, if they want to be, if they're going to be buried, we give them, their trophy is a hand shovel, a little garden shovel. And if they're going to be cremated, they get but it's really called a mason jar. And everybody said, okay, but then I put it out to the rest of the class and not a single person responded. So it didn't happen. I think they were afraid of death.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and afraid doesn't always mean that you're running from it, but it sometimes means that you don't join contests like that because you don't want to talk about it. You don't mention it. It's just a taboo subject that you stay away from, and your whole life fight to avoid, right? Much of our beauty industry, much of our fitness industry is about avoiding death.
Yeah. And I feel like it's not really so much death as I feel like I haven't done all the things I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just feel like I don't want to, with all you think about, like with the COVID, it makes you think about it more because people are dying,
Sure.
and so I feel like, I haven't, there's so many things I haven't done that I had hoped to do.
Yeah.
Kind of like the bucket list starts. Sure. You start making your bucket list. And
yeah. But Mary, in your 30s, you shouldn't be ready to. But the reality is at 61, where I'm at, there's things that I still want to do because much of my life has been taken up by work and all of that stuff. And so some of those other things that I'd like to do sometime have sat there as just the bucket list items. And somewhere you have to decide, when is it that you start doing all of that?
Mm-hmm. Like one of the things, this is just one thing. My husband and I were when we retired, we were gonna do some more traveling. We haven't done very much. I mean, we used to take the kids camping, and we've been to, Rocky Point and the mountains and things like that, but we were really going to do some traveling. And now I just got divorced this past year.
Suddenly changes everything. Huh?
And it changes everything. Plus I thought, why didn't we do more traveling before?
Yeah.
Why didn't we do this already?
But see, that's not dissimilar to what happened to my mom. My dad worked up until just past 70, retired. They moved down here to Arizona, and within a year he died.
Oh my gosh.
So all of those things that they had on their list, all of those, plans that they were going to do now, it changed. And my mom has been able to do some of those things, but her list was do this with James.
Right.
So, there's a certain amount of where you have to live while you're alive, not just wait until you retire to live. And that's sometimes tough for us to do, partially because we're busy. We're about the the stuff of life. And sometimes we just don't take the time. But at least part of what this movie is about what forces the people of Milagro to think differently about life. Right? One of the interesting characters was the mayor. And at one point he told Herbie, the college student, he said, if we haven't learned it yet, we're not interested in learning it. Right?
Mhm.
And so there's a certain amount of where I just want it to be like this. Don't change me around. And many times that's the way we deal with life. But life will continually thrust upon us something different. And that's definitely what's happening as the development company comes in and says, here's this change, what are you going to do about it? And like with most changes, there's good implications, right? There's things that draw you towards it, but often at what cost? One of the most interesting pieces for me is when Joe was offered a job. He'd gone earlier to find a job, right? And they just said, basically, nope, nothing for you. They didn't want him, right? But then later, when it became expedient for the company, they said, sure, of course we got a job. And Joe had to decide, am I willing to walk down that road with all the implications?
Yeah, especially said knowing it was a bribe.
Knowing.
Yeah, it just felt like they just didn't really care about the people.
Well, but that's not untrue of corporations. You know, a Walmart isn't supposed to have to care about a community. Their job is to bring in a particular service and try to make it so that you want to be part of helping them, but not necessarily do they buy into the community that they're there for. They're there for the service that they give to the community, and not necessarily for the community itself. Is that good or bad? Not necessarily.
Well, a lot of it has been bad for other small businesses in the area that have gotten pushed out, because when Walmart comes in, it's hard for them to compete, especially like with pharmacies.
Yeah, I was in little teeny communities up in northern Arizona, northeast Arizona, in middle 1980s, when Walmart came in, the first Walmart up on the mountain. And it was 60 miles away from my little towns. It was over in Sholo. But because of that, it caused Herbella's supermarket to close in Springerville.
Wow.
Wow.
Herbella's couldn't compete with. Walmart's aim isn't necessarily to put Herbella's out of business, but it easily becomes that.
It does.
And the development corporation isn't necessarily saying, I don't care about the people in Milagro, but they also don't have a concern about making sure that Milagro stays. And the question is, when we're the citizens, what do we do about that? If we have something here that we want to maintain, how do we continue that?
I think also that what turned out as an accident, like with the water, he accidentally kicked it and it started watering.
Yeah, that's what
And-
Siri was saying, right? As you were coming in, was talking about that he didn't mean to start watering, did he?
No. And then he decided to keep doing it, and then just how it inspired the people.
Yeah. And at first, most of those people were more curious about what was going to happen to him because he was, rather
Right.
than, is this something that is going to affect me or that I want to join in with, or any of that stuff, right? In fact, some of them, you know, like the lowriders going by, they were just there to heckle. Right?
Mhm.
Yet there they were at the end, along with the other folks. But the question is how do we become aware of a movement like that? And how do we help nurture it? Because the one person who was kind of doing that was Sonia Braga, the actress, her name is Ruby in the movie,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
She had some kind of awareness of, we have to use this moment.
Mhm.
And not all of us have that kind of awareness, do we? But how do we learn to listen to the person who does? Whether that person is ethereal, a spirit voice, so to speak, or whether it's a Sonia Brava who's trying to mobilize us in one way or another, because both of those types of voices happen. How have you learned to listen? I guess is part of my question.
Ruby really became passionate,
She did.
and she really had the vision
Yeah.
of where this could go bad and where this could go right.
Yeah.
And it seemed like a lot of the townspeople were kind of lost and didn't really know what to do. And she figured it out.
Uh-huh. But in a very interesting way, one of the most interesting relationships there is between her and Charlie, the newspaper lawyer guy, right?
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah.
Charlie had been one of those advocate type of voices like Ruby in the past. I've tried lots of cases like that. And he knew the difficulty. In fact, he said, I've lost lots of cases like that. And so he wasn't sure that he wanted to. But Ruby, first of all, just coaxed him into at least show up at the meeting. And then did that. Charlie came in order to tell us about how to do this.
Right.
And,
Right.
and he knew that he'd been railroaded and he could have walked out, but he stepped to the front, right? Knowing the difficulty, knowing the challenge. And that meeting didn't come out as according to Ruby's dreams, came out more according to Charlie's worst fears. But that didn't deter Ruby, did it?
Mm-mm.
Kept kind of dragging Charlie along, and little by little, Charlie found his want to again.
Which really happened when he said, excuse me, I'm the attorney for Joe.
Yeah, because at his heart, he didn't want to see Joe pushed around. He knew that the development company taking advantage of Joe was bad for what he wanted as well. Not necessarily for his interest, but for his soul.
Mm-hmm.
So what pushes you into that space where you have to step into a role? That's at least part of what this movie asks. And what around you right now is being the Ruby voice, but you haven't quite listened to it yet.
I'm really getting pushed into having a Ruby voice right now.
Oh yeah.
And it's been feeling very traumatic. A couple nights ago, I got half a night's sleep because I was just so upset about what was going on. But I have chemical sensitivity, and I'm a board member of a group here in town that is for people with MCS, and most of what we do is have a monthly meeting, which of course now we're not having at all because it normally was in person. Some people have electrical hypersensitivity disorder, and so they can't even do a Zoom meeting.
Oh.
But anyhow, so I've talked to people and tried to get some movement just towards getting approval that we could spend $16 a month to have Zoom. and that's been really like moving mountains. But you know, I think we'll get there. But a lot of people just don't have energy because they're just have too many health issues to try to do all that much. And so, but I'm trying to rebuild the website, which hasn't been updated for 10 years, and design it because I'm a graphic designer. I had a graphic design studio in New York City, moved it to Tucson, and so forth. And so anyway, I have a lot of experience in design, and I have a sense of and a vision of what needs to happen. And it's really hard because there's a member of the group who is just, she's got her ideas about what she wants to do, and it's not design at all. And it's really difficult because on one hand, I'm just wanting to say, okay, I've got these other projects to work on. I should just leave this alone and go work on those. And then I think, no, because there's no good website that really talks about chemical sensitivity and isn't an organization that can advocate for people. There's so much that needs to happen. And I just feel so moved. I'd like to just like dive in and just, really do a lot of work on this, more than I can do at this point with all the other things I've got going on in my life. But I found myself feeling so passionate about it. And I just thought, well, this really needs to happen. I mean, I can really feel it, and I can see, how this could really move us forward in a way that has never happened before.
Yeah. So in some ways, you're standing at the top of the hill, the water's flowing past your feet, and you're going,
yeah,
do I go down there and hoe the rows? Because there's a lot of rows to hoe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? But beans are made to grow in this field. And they've been keeping that away from us too long. And you're right, that is an important movement to do. But you have to build up your courage and your strength to be able to do that.
Yeah.
It is because you need a way to reach out to have people learn about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that is important in this day and age, but obviously this other person doesn't think so. But is there a group that you can have a consensus?
Yeah, well, we are a group. Yeah, I'm a board member of the organization, and but the board members don't do anything, basically. And and one of the things that it's interesting because there's a real parallel. It's like there's just a lot of people have gotten to the point where we're just so used to how this is how it is, and people don't listen to us. MCS isn't real and so forth. And so they're just kind of resigned to that. Yeah. And having to put energy into something, is just like, it's really hard for them to do. And it's easier for like one person the woman who's wanted to, or had done it in the past, and wanted to just kind of like throw a lot of photographs on there that don't make any sense really. But just present some information and boom, that's it, and it's totally unprofessional. And it's like, I've seen what happened. The CFIDS Association of America, that's chronic fatigue syndrome, they went through this huge transformation that was very painful, but at the same time, which has been tremendous in terms of what they've been able to do to get money for medical research.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's just no medical research for MCS. And so, I'm kind of seeing us at this point where if I can find enough allies and people who have some energy to do something about this, we could really take a leap forward. Yeah. But if not, we're kind of stuck.
Yeah, but it means you're gonna run across a lot of the Freddie Fenders, the mayor, who says, yeah, no, we haven't learned it yet, we don't want to, and in some ways you just have to ignore that voice, and that's the hard part, because open hearts want to be open to everyone, and not everyone is open to them.
Yeah.
Right? And so you've got to find the Charlie Bloom that becomes your advocate, that becomes your lawyer, your help, the one who is able to do that. The good news is that a number of years ago, when we were trying to set up a nonprofit for the Refuge of Hope, where I go to down in Peru, we wanted to have, we wanted to do that, but none of us really had the ability. But somebody stepped up and said, let me just do this for you. I will do it gratis. And so there's somebody out there who may be able to, you may be able to find. You might have to ask several times and look around, but there might be somebody who has the ability to do web pages in ways that that you can't, and we'll do it for you.
I can do the web pages. That's fine. It's not the web pages that's hard. It's the rest of it.
Yeah.
Getting the information, the right information, and even just getting people to agree to have a website that's well designed, as opposed to let's just throw everything together and just call it good enough.
So sometimes, up to that last issue. Okay, so when I first moved down to Yuma has this great big long sanctuary, that the old church type of sanctuary, and they sang into their books like this, right? They're hymns. So nobody heard anybody. And so I just got to thinking, up at the church I'd been at, which is in West Phoenix, there's an old screen that's just sitting in front of the front pew. And it's just been sitting there for about a year now because we replaced it. So I called up the pastor and said, can I steal that and bring it down here? And I didn't ask anybody except for one guy. I said, Paul, will you put this screen up for me? And I just started projecting the words up in front. I didn't ask anybody at all. Didn't ask permission of anybody except Paul, right? Paul put it up for me. And one Sunday we just started showing the words up in front. And suddenly everyone goes, but it was the best thing because they started hearing each other's voice. Instead of singing into their books, they were singing to each other again. And and so sometimes, I just mentioned that because sometimes you just have to do it and not try to get permission.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been thinking.
Yeah.
I just have to build the website and call the right people who know, where the domain is and all these things, and put it together, and then just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. The good news is that within pretty short order, within about a year and a half, they liked it so much that they put in a whole audio video system there, and they had one over here for the choir, so the choir could see the words, and so they really bought into it pretty quickly because they saw and maybe heard what it is, how it helps. So a lot of people will come around. They just got whatever reluctance they have. Sometimes you just have to override it.
Yeah.
And you
That's
never
true.
know what type of effect that will have on people that are not affected personally with MCS.
Yeah.
Because I am a person that has been affected by somebody else's, and actually I was deposed legally to represent, and it was it was a 10-year legal battle that I helped her with, but I've learned, because of that person's chemical sensitivities, to make my own laundry detergent and all the different things that I can do that can help. Well, she's here in town now, but she's cloistering because of her chemical sensitivity. She's like basically across the street from me, but we haven't seen each other. We've talked, but she came in for, anyhow, I just learned so much that I know that it's then helping other people who might not have chemical sensitivities, but it still makes a difference in their body by my choices because of what I learned from her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing is when you get to have a friend or a family member that has some kind of condition, you want to have a place to go read about it. I mean, that's one of the first things I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite lines in this whole thing, I think, is very pertinent to this point too. Remember when Ruby comes out to the bean field right at the very first, and she looks at this poor little patch of dirt with a little bit of water going there and some little teeny plants starting up, and she thinks about Jose. She calls him Jose, and this time he says, I knew Jose Mondragon wouldn't go through his life without doing one great thing.
Yes.
So you will see, you will have somebody, Siri, who's standing there like Ruby going, I knew Siri wouldn't go through her life without doing one great thing. And they will be there. They will help be the voice that allows this to be something that something even better than what you think. Somebody will be there that way.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
So just,
And just contact, I don't know if you've got any contact with Dr. Gray down in Bisbee, I think he is, but he works with chemical sensitivity patients big time. And my friend, yeah.
Yeah, I know him. I go to him.
Okay.
Yeah, he's really good. Yeah.
so lots of really good stories in here about how do you change a community, how do you move in some way or another. And the good news about it is you don't have to fix everybody. Not everyone's going to change, but you'll find lots of places where suddenly somebody shows up. Like, for example, when the Forest Service guys are coming there and gonna take him, and the 3 old guys in the truck.
Yeah, that was great. That was great.
And I love the line where he goes, if I take away his gun, are you going to shoot him? Yes. They were there to stand up for what was right, huh? Right? And there's going to be people who are going to stand up for what's right in the midst of a whole lot of people either ignoring it, not knowing what to do, arguing with each other. But there's going to be some people who stand up. As we went through, you saw several ways that somebody was standing up, and I think later on it revealed that it was Amarante who burnt the sign and whatnot. That somebody was there doing that which was going to change everything, right? And unlikely allies like that. But you have to keep doing your faithful thing, even as you're waiting for somebody else to do it. And sometimes that's really hard, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because it doesn't always come at your time frame, whatever schedule you've set up. But Charlie Bloom came around. Whatever Amarante did, it helped change people.
Mm-hmm.
And
there were a lot of little things like that.
Yeah. And I think sometimes when I look at the title of the movie where it says the Milagro Beanfield War, right? And Milagro means miracle. And I think sometimes when we look at miracles, what we want is the huge lightning bolt from heaven parting of the Red Sea miracles. And that's not what most of us get, is it?
No.
But I'm not certain that, for example, Moses, the story about him seeing the bush on fire, I'm not certain that it was as huge a miracle as what we turned it into. I have a feeling it happened more like this. Moses is up there with his sheep, and all of a sudden his heart is on fire. Oh my God, God's around here, present somehow. And when he told that to somebody said, I don't get that. How was God speaking? There must have been something miraculous like a bush on fire. And in the retelling, it became a bigger, more spectacular miracle. But my guess is that for Moses himself, it was more of a presence in an unexpected place that was unexplainable using the words that he had. And so sometimes for the rest of it's that same thing. It's that, damn, I kicked the plug and suddenly the water's flowing. How do I turn that into a miracle?
Mm-hmm.
And it's in the retelling and the being faithful, if I can say that, in the midst of the challenges, that moment becomes a miraculous moment.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I remember reading the book and seeing the movie a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
And it had more meaning for me now that I'm older.
Yeah. And I think we often have to do that. And it's not just older. I think sometimes it's different perspective than before. Right? Sometimes when you're looking at it from this perspective versus that perspective, you take on a different character will speak to you maybe, right? Because maybe at one point I was the mayor, but at another point maybe I was Bernie, the college student. And so I hear with different ears than what I heard before.
And you were never Lupita, the ornery pig?
Sometimes I've been Lupita, the right? She was a pretty fascinating character, wasn't she?
Yeah.
I was thrilled she didn't die. I went at the end.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, she's still alive.
Yeah, but Lupita was kind of just that uncontrollable piece that's just sometimes just there, and you don't know what to do with it sometimes. One day at my home church named Sunrise, we were looking at some really kind of fun things. What are we going to do to be able to publicize Christmas and Easter? And we needed some strings of lights. And so we'd ask in the congregation, but that's not where the strings of light came from. Suddenly somebody just showed up on the doorstep and said, I got some extra strings of lights. Can you use them? A Lupita that just shows up in a way that we didn't expect. We thought somebody would have extra or somebody would buy extra from the congregation, but that's not how it happened, right? Lupita's just there doing odd things. And sometimes, Jose thought she was doing bad things, right? That she'd torn up the thing, not the bulldozer, because you didn't know anything about the bulldozer. But in his anger, in the shooting that he didn't really want to do necessarily, suddenly something changed, right? And are we open to that change thing even when it doesn't come the way we want?
And the sacrifice, I mean, the angel said to the old man, there's a sacrifice coming.
There's a sacrifice coming. Because it doesn't, I think at least part of that is that very rarely are things bloodless, right? Pain, difficulty, blood spills, right? In different ways. And we have to be willing to go through that, whether we like it or not. Because that's the type of thing that makes us go back to, I'll just stay with my comfortable space, which essentially says nothing's going to happen.
Yes, it's easier not to change. It's just to stay. It's so much easier.
Yeah. But oftentimes if you don't change, guess what happens? The development gets built and suddenly you're priced out of being able to stay in the homes that you're in. Right? And so your non-courage makes things deteriorate. And the hard part is that there's no guarantee that your courage will solve things the way you think. But there is almost a guarantee that if you don't do anything, things will not be what you hope. Right? It'll deteriorate to something that's better for somebody else. So I guess that begs the question is how do you find your voice? Right? How do you be true to the voice? Especially if you're Amarante and nobody else is listening to the concertina player. Right? There he is playing along. Other people could hear, but he's the only one who seems to be hearing. And so he goes out and says, it was your, the sheriff said at one point, it's your bullet in the wall, wasn't it? Have you been doing other things? And the answer was, yeah, he has been. But wasn't the sheriff an interesting character too? Because he's the one who sat between the two different groups, the development company on one side and the town people on the other. And every time they said something like, let's do this, his point was always, let me give you a different perspective about how things work up here. Right? And are we brave enough to be able to do that?
I liked him a lot. I liked his character a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a remarkable character, because without him being there and being a modulating voice in all of that, things could have turned out very differently, couldn't they?
Yes. And I do have a question. I wasn't sure exactly why at the end the governor called.
Yeah.
Like, why did he call the development company and say they had to leave it alone?
I think he was getting too much backlash, political backlash, which always makes, governors don't like bad publicity. And so I think that's what was happening. And so a combination of different things, whatever stories Charlie Bloom had put out there that had reached a greater audience, whatever, whatever things were there. Governors don't tend to like bad stories. Sometimes certain presidents do.
But at the end, when Christopher Walken's character is told he has to leave, and he turns around as he's walking, he turns around and he smiles at Jose. So I think in some ways, while he was working against Jose, he was supportive of what Jose was doing.
At least, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's all kinds of things that we just have to, at least part of what we have to do is figure out how to be brave when we need to be brave, how to be persistent when we need to be persistent, how to be open to the water flowing down the mountain when we need to be open. And those are all hard things to be able to do if we're not very intentional and very open. So remarkable movie. Thank you for discussing it. Next week we talk about Beatriz. So enjoy watching that movie. You can find it on Amazon. I think it's available there. I have the one copy here in the office. It should be back tomorrow. If you call Melissa, then she can check on it, because she'll be here she'll tell you if it's here or not. Okay.
Okay. So are you going to leave this group for a little bit?
Let's continue. I like talking to the three of you. You may not like talking to me, but I like.
We love talking to you.
Right.
And I will let you know that one Thursday a month, I've got another commitment.
Okay, can you let us know so that we can plan the party for that day, or?
Yeah. I was wondering if somebody would be willing to move from the other group.
They might be. I can ask and see. And it could be that that Lewis and why can't I think of her name? Nancy? No. Anyway,
they were in ours.
Right? They weren't here last week, and they showed up on Tuesday, and maybe that was just Wednesday. Maybe that was just a one time. Maybe they'll be back here. So we'll just hold on and just see how it goes.
Well,
Okay.
I'm hoping I can retire maybe at the end of this year.
And then you can just watch movies every day.
I know. And join all the groups all the time.
Right.
And what type of work is it that you do, Mary?
I'm a health assistant at a school.